ultimately, it really just comes down to Tennessee was more prepared, which is an uncomfortable conversation to have. Well, boys, not the outlook that we expected. Starting 502 podcast, Presley, Meyer, Jake Hook, and of course, Roman Kelly back with you guys as always. Guys, I don't know. Coming off the heels of that Clemson game, momentum's never been better. Me and Jake feel really good about this game. And it whatever could have gone wrong, all the stuff that we pointed out that could have gone wrong pretty much went wrong. So, fellas, Jake, how we doing outside of basketball? Let's not talk about basketball for a second. How are you doing? I want to know about you, Jake.
Unfortunately, I've tied my personality and my emotions so closely to all U of L athletics that it's hard to separate the two. But I'm doing as well as I can.
Roman.
Pretty much similar as Jake. I'm disappointed, but still optimistic.
You know what we are optimistic about, though? Before we get into anything else, with Louisville basketball kicking off its season on Monday, or this past, I guess, 2 Mondays ago, we are officially locked in on basketball like it's midseason. That's why our team at State of Louisville and Starting 502 podcast, myself and thousands of others are using Underdog Fantasy. Underdog is the best place to cash in on all your takes this basketball season. Which players are going off, which ones are ice cold. Make your picks in just a few taps and turn your sports opinions into real cold hard cash. It's super easy, and you can win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on player stats like points, blocks, steals, and much more. Not to mention, Underdogs offers great games and rewards as you bet with Underdog Rescues. You can get your money back and receive a promo if an early injury causes your entry to lose, which is awesome. Folks, this week on Underdog, looks like Champions Classic is going to be right in our realm. Boys, any picks for Champions Classic? Anything we see that we like?
I'm looking at it. I like Hunter Dickinson higher than 9.5 boards. I think AJ
Okay.
Storr over 12.5. I mean, dude has never seen a shot he doesn't like. Over 12.5 points. And then I took KJ Adams higher than 16.5 PRAs. So those are the three that I like. I know more about this Kansas team than I do Michigan State, so that's where I'm sticking to.
Yeah, I'm going to go AJ Storr higher than 0.5 3-pointers made. That's going to be my play of the day for tomorrow. Roman, any thoughts?
I've got to play for tomorrow as well, but it's in a different game.
Okay,
FAU
what you got?
FAU is going to visit UCF. Interstate matchup there going on. Darius Johnson's rebound line is at 3.5 rebounds. I'm going over, higher on his
Higher.
rebound lines at
There
the
you
mark.
go. Yeah.
He'll be playing plenty of minutes. I think he can get to that 4 or 5 rebound mark.
Either way, Underdog, best place to play pick'em. So sign up and deposit now using promo code STARTING5. That's the word starting, FIVE, all one word, to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Not to mention, Underdog will be running specials, promos, and bonuses almost every single day, including profit boost, discounts, free picks, and much, much more. Higher or lower, you make the call on Underdog. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.npcgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369. Underdog Fantasy. Folks, we've been enjoying it. But one thing we did not enjoy was this past Saturday. I enjoy the environment, right? Like, so going down to the arena, one thing we talked about last week, feels weirdly nice to have traffic going into a Louisville basketball game. Like, you actually have to show up 30 minutes to an hour early to get to your seats before tip-off, which is fantastic. Largest crowd, according to the one and only Kelly Dickey, in the last 7 years in November. And it felt like it. Like, the environment was fantastic. Everybody was there early. Everybody stayed. Like, Louisville was kind of getting their, getting their butts kicked towards the end of the game. And lots of people stuck around. One thing I also found that I have in common with Kentucky fans, Tennessee fans are not fun. Just didn't like them. I've been around Tennessee fans a little bit, and normally we have that commonality of hating Kentucky, but they were just not fun. They came in, they expected to win. They acted like it was kind of their place. They started their chants and their singing and whatever else Tennessee fans do. I did not enjoy that whatsoever, but I did enjoy the crowd, just shy of 17,000, 16,500, something like that. Everybody wore white, everybody was loud, everybody was into it, everybody was ready to go off, and then Tennessee comes out and goes up 10-0. And it would really just kind of suck the air out of the building. Louisville made some runs. They got it down to single digits in the second half, but that's a Kai Ziegler 3. Jake and I talked about this a little bit. Never felt the energy sucked out of a building quite like that. Maybe like that Duke comeback game in the, was that David Padgett season, or was that Chris Mack? No, that was Chris Mack. David Padgett was the Virginia game. The Chris Mack was the coach for the Zion
2019,
Williamson,
yeah.
R.J. Barrett, those guys that came in, and
2018.
Louisville was. Or was it the same season? No. I think that was Chris Mack's first year. That was his opportunity to get like his first big time win. First big time conference win. And then they had payback the next season with David Johnson and those boys at Duke. Anyways, back on track. Never really quite felt the wind sucked out of a building like that because Louisville was going on a run, had 29 and a half great seconds of defense, and then Zakai Ziegler, a guy who is not known for making 3-point shots, who was over 6 on the season coming into the game, drilled one of 4 threes that he made on the day. So pretty much everything that could have gone wrong went wrong outside of free throw shooting. Guys, I'll throw it to you first, Jake. Initial thoughts on this kind of ass kicking by Tennessee.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think going into it, we felt pretty decent. I mean, the team had given us no reason not to, but obviously the competition level wasn't nearly as high as what it was on Saturday. And I just mean from the jump, nothing went right. I think we started the game, it was like 0 for 6 with 4 turnovers to start the game.
Yeah, and all threes. Didn't
yeah,
even take
and
a
they
two
weren't
in that stretch.
They weren't even bad looks either. I mean, the turnovers sucked. We turned the ball over a
Mhm.
lot. I think our first 3 possessions, but the looks were not bad. Just, I mean, tough to come back from 10 down. I mean, ended halftime only down 14. So after the first 5 minutes, it was a pretty competitive game. But just digging yourself a hole when you're playing a team that's so defensively elite like Tennessee is makes it almost impossible. And like you said, Louisville had the runs down 9 with 13 minutes left to go. Zakai Ziegler hits that 3 from the fucking elbow of the Cardinal bird near half court, and just game never really stood a chance after that.
Yeah, we were, like Jake said, we were clawing back from the very start. Press. It was tough to watch. It's tough when you start a game off 0 for 6 like that, and you're also defending well. You're defending a team that has I'm not going to say offensive firepower, but it has scores. It has an elite big man.
Sure.
It has smooth offense, and you defended it well. You forced turnovers. You forced contested shots, and you didn't do anything about it. You put yourself in a hole still while playing the kind of defense you would have needed to play to win. So put yourself to be in a position to stay in the game the entire game. The defensive effort was there from start. I won't say start to finish, but at every stretch that it felt like they were about to go on a run, we would kind of step up defensively, force a couple stops or two, and we wouldn't convert all on the offensive end. So that was tough to watch. You can't put yourself in a hole like that against a team that's going to be so defensively sound and cutthroat defensively as well. What's his name? Meshack, the Meshack kid. It felt like it was Scottie Pippen out there defensively. Every time somebody put the ball on the floor while he was guarding the ball, you weren't getting by him. He forced a pass almost every time, and we knew he was one of the better defenders on this team. Might be the next best defender after Ziegler, but it's still he's not that level of a defender. He was out there making himself look like it because of we didn't have any slashing prowess on offense. We were not trying to cut into the lane. We weren't trying to do a whole lot, getting the ball, not really many paint touches. The bigs trying to conduct the motion offense out at the perimeter. Case and Pryor getting forced out of the lane to catch the ball and out of the paint, things like that. You just didn't do yourself on any favors in this game on offense at all for the defensive effort and defensive efficiency you were getting at the start of the game.
Yeah, I mean, it got to the point where, in the second half, Louisville's probing, they're drawing fouls, they're doing they're doing things that clearly the coaching staff asked them to do, but ultimately they weren't really getting a lot of good looks out of that. And I think the one big takeaway for me is that this Louisville team feels like a heavy rhythm team. Like it feels like they got to be in their rhythm. When things are going well, they're going to go really well. But when a team is able to kind of, muck it up, be really aggressive, really physical, I think that's going to cause this team some problems. I always go back to this conversation that Jake and I had um, with Mark Lieberman in the offseason. We talked about, when Louisville's constructing this team, what's Louisville's answer when a team like Tennessee, when a team like Duke or Kentucky comes in and they have guys that are just simply bigger than them, that are, and by bigger, I mean wider, heavier, more aggressive, can assert their will. And I liked Leibs's response, right? I like that he said, you build a team to make other people try to stop you. You don't build a team to try to stop other people. Unless you're Tony Bennett at Virginia. I mean, that's that's not how coaches should look at or approach assembling a team. But the reality is that Louisville was not able to assert its will in any way against Tennessee. They simply weren't. And if they're not able to get in a rhythm and they're not able to knock down outside shots, then this is the result. And we've kind of like quietly been kind of warning against this, kind of silently expecting this to happen at some point. I don't think we thought it was going to be against this Tennessee team though, because they weren't a team that Rick Barnes's teams are known for their physicality. That was their calling card. That was their staple for 4, 5, 6 years there at Tennessee. But this team was not expected to be like that, right? They're more of a team that seems more compatible and similar to the way the Louisville plays. But they definitely went back to that well. They definitely went back to that aggressive style of play against Louisville, and I think they knew that was the way to beat this team. I mean, if you look at, you go back to the NCAA tournament last season, College Charleston under Pat Kelsey against Alabama. Alabama was clearly just the more aggressive team. It's not that College Charleston was a bunch of patsies or anything, but Alabama was able to out aggress them, out physical them, if you will, and that kind of led to what we saw on Saturday, where Louisville gets out rebounded 40-26, and it's really not that close. I mean, I think I looked up at one point and it was like 32-11, something of that nature. Like they're getting out rebounded by 20 plus. And there were a couple of segments as the game kind of wore on where Louisville got 2, 3 offensive rebounds in a possession, and that kind of upped the stats a little bit. I think it was a much larger discrepancy than just 14 rebounds. I mean,
It felt
Tennessee
like
owned
it.
the boards. In any situation where Tennessee had to get a rebound, they absolutely got the rebound, 100%. And then there were other possessions where Louisville was playing solid defense, forced them into a bad shot, and then Tennessee got the rebound, reset, and then got into a good shot and scored. And so they were just doing things that winning veteran teams do, things that we didn't see in their first game, right? And I think that's why there's a lot of optimism. We're like, Tennessee looked like kind of not very good in their exhibition against, who was it they played in their exhibition? Was it
Gardner Webb,
remember
I think.
Jake?
I was about to
Yeah.
say
No,
George Mason.
no,
Gardner Webb
no.
sounds
So
right.
they played George Mason in their opener, but in their exhibition they played a high quality opponent and lost. I can't remember who they played though. But they did not look very good in their exhibition game. But anyways, yeah, there are a lot of positives entering this game. I thought that Louisville could seize all the momentum of the crowd and coming off of a hot off season. And I think the first time they really got faced adversity and got punched in the mouth they ultimately couldn't respond fast enough to turn it into a product that was conducive of winning. So that's kind of my takeaway. I mean, I think that you could say a lot of things and really get into the down to the nitty gritty of things, and I think Jake's done a pretty solid job of breaking down, you know, what some of the negatives were and some of the larger, more impactful moments of the game were. But I think ultimately it really just comes down to Tennessee was more prepared, which is an uncomfortable conversation to have. They were the more aggressive team. They were the more athletic team. They were the more together team. They were the better defensive team, the better rebounding team, the better shooting team. And so, I mean, you got to hand it to Tennessee a little bit. I mean, like, let's not act like they didn't play a fantastic game.
No, they were better than us across the board. That's for
They
sure.
played damn good.
That's a good point you make there, Press. I'm right there with you. I think Louisville showed the flashes of what you saw, like what we knew Louisville could be against a defensive heavy team like Tennessee,
Right.
and a defensive forefront that's going to be aggressive like that. We saw the push the pace on missed shots, on long rebounds, right? If we were able to get the defensive rebound, push the pace, quick passes, assertive, pump fake, get into the lane, then kick out, not just get the ball, triple threat, and then start looking for a pass. We weren't being assertive enough in the key moments, but then we would see the flashes of it, and that reminded you, okay, we would just go on a little quick 6-0 spurt or a little quick 8-0 spurt. I'm saying quick as if that happened often, but we there was like 2 or 3 of those. I think we had the 9-0 run or 10-0 run as well, before the long 3 in the half. There just wasn't enough consistency in anything we did prepare for, right? Which is okay. That's fine. It's our first game. 15 new players, 13 new guys you're playing. We were playing, 9 deep last night, 10 deep last night? Out of your 13 new guys that you know are going to be playing this season?
Right.
We went 10 deep in game 2. That's not normal. That is not a normal thing. And it's going to take time to mold and figure out the best lineups and figure out, who belongs with who on the court against teams that are a little bit bigger, teams that are also going to be, another thing that hasn't been talked about in a lot of things that I've seen, other than like you just pointed it out, we gave up offensive rebounds in key moments after a good defensive possession. That's an offensive rebounding-minded team, though. We're not going to be the best rebounding team in general, but that Tennessee is going to be one of the better offensive rebounding teams this season. That's okay to have a performance like this. While we were clawing back, they had 100% of the momentum the entire game. We never really had a chance to put ourselves into a winning position. It still had plenty of moments where it felt like, geez, after those 2 stops in that bucket right there, if we could get one more 3 and one more stop and maybe a foul call, you're right back into single digits. And if you get to single digits with a team that has as many 3-point shooters as ours, you will be into this game. Jake mentioned it as well. In the first half, at least, we were missing threes back and forth like over and over and over, but they were good shots. They were good looks. And when you're going to be a heavy 3-point shooting team, you're going to miss them. You're going to lose games to good teams when you don't make your shots. So I'm not mad at this for our second performance, right? I don't know if you guys listened to the Mike Rutherford show at all today, but he brought up a stat, and there's a website that points out like the shot quality. It shows the statistical shot quality, and it showed based on the quality of shots we got what the outcome of the score should have been. And we should have, it was like 74 to 67 or something in Louisville's favor based on the quality of shots we were taking. Now, I'm not one to look into what ifs, right, at all and put emphasis on that. But when that's a really specific, intricate stat that shows, there's a computer system gauging our shots from one game, and it showed that based on percentages and player history, the likely score would have been this. So, we missed shots. We didn't defend well once we got into a hole. And then that's another great point, Press. I've been trying to figure out how to put when you mentioned that rhythm is going to be a key on probably both ends of the ball for this Louisville team. It's going to be a very big key on offense. And it's going to be one of those things that Chucky's going to have to learn this. Chucky's going to have to understand this rhythm and see what he needs out of the guys on the floor with him at all times. But the offensive rhythm, it would get out of place. We'd have 1 or 2 sets where we're looking to get, Case and Pryor at the elbow or the top of the key with a ball and the defender on him, somebody coming around the screen, and the person coming off the screen isn't prepared for the person guarding him to fight over that screen and make it tough for him and not give him an easy catch or an easy handoff on the ball. And now you're forcing to play at a faster speed on a dribble handoff than you ever intended to play during this one set we've got. You pass it to the corner or you pick up your dribble, and now the set's completely slowed down or not. It hasn't, the passes haven't found themselves like you want them to in 10 to 15 seconds into the shot clock. And you're not prepared for that. It's game 2. You're not supposed to be 100% prepared for that. Now, when you have a team that has but tournament aspirations, you want to see adjusting in live time. You want to see, let's see plan B on offense in live time. Let's see plan C. And that's where you could tell the preparation wasn't there yet for us.
Right.
And then defensively, while we defended just straight up well on the ball and weren't completely it was not like we were lackadaisical or letting, guys backdoor screen us or anything like that. It was more so good offensive rebounds at key points for them. 20
good
seconds
ball
of
movement.
20 seconds of good defense, and then in the last 5 to 10 seconds of the possession, we break down and let them get find 2 passes for an easy layup, that kind of thing. I just think that offensively, you do want to see an adjustment. You want to, find a different route to finding open shots. Find a, player that you're going to start initiating the offense when you want to get more pick and rolls going on instead of coming in three, motion offense at the top of the key and then hoping that the defense is sagged off on someone. You can find a cross court pass. That wasn't working. It wasn't working for us early on. You have to adjust. But that's what game 2 is for. I'm glad to have a test like this. You see, you've got a week's worth of film to watch on this kind of performance.
Sure.
But yeah, there's just the rhythm was a key thing, and that brings me back to my point. Chucky, you were the point guard. You're an experienced player. You've been in situations like this in the sense of you're the general of a team that has their back against the wall at the moment, and you have to find a way to create. Right, I didn't see enough driving kicks from Chucky. I felt like he had a speed advantage with his matchup. Even I think Ziegler did have the strength, was a little stronger than him, but I felt like quickness. He had the first step on Ziegler, and should have been getting around him a little bit more, or just getting into the paint, getting those paint touches, and then getting the defense to collapse a little more and getting players a little more open on those catch and shoot threes and stuff. But I'm nitpicking pretty heavily and babbling at this point. Sorry to go off on that tangent there so specifically.
No.
I like the point that you guys both made there. Presley, with you with the rhythm and I'm right there with you guys.
Yeah. Yep. Jake, thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm not ready to draw overwhelming thoughts on this game. I don't want to overreact to it because it is so early, and I think Tennessee is a better team than we are right now, just in general. But 2, they played their A- game, and we played our D+ C- game. And I think if you look at the numbers, they bear out that, Louisville should have, like Roman said, been so much more competitive. We shoot 25% from 3. They shoot 53% from 3. I think if you play Tennessee 10 times, those statistics never bear out again. Like, it's so much more likely that Louisville is the 52% and they are the 25%. So that's frustrating to me, especially with rebounding too. We gave up 12 offensive boards, which was an issue, but Tennessee was so efficient with them. They got 15 second chance points. We had 13 offensive rebounds, only had 5 second chance points. So it's an issue there.
It's not good enough.
And then they turned the ball over 20 times. We only scored 12 points off turnovers. We turned the ball over 15 times. They scored 20 points off turnovers. So it's just like all these little metrics that we're actually really competitive in, we're just not efficient in the way that we
capitalized
in that game.
They capitalized and we didn't.
Yeah, if you just came in right after, if you looking back told someone, Louisville forced 20 turnovers, why am I blanking on his name? The point guard,
Zakai Ziegler.
Zakai Ziegler. I keep wanting to call him Lanier. Zakai Ziegler had 11 turnovers, 10 turnovers in the first half. Those stats right there would lend themselves to Louisville winning this game. But yeah, you had a lot of things that that probably won't continue to happen for Tennessee happen. And then, things that probably will not be a trend for Louisville, did happen. Right. So and I guess that would be my next point, right? Is like, do you guys in any way think that we're seeing any trends with this game? Like, will this be a repeat issue when Louisville goes to the Bahamas? Will this be a repeat issue when they play Duke or Kentucky? Those are games that are coming up here in the next 4, 5, 6 weeks, right? Uh, I don't, in my opinion, I don't think this is indicative of the way the rest of the season's going to go. And I think that there's a lot of people out there that don't feel the same way. So, Jake, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I can't blame. I mean, I can. I guess if you're not as into watching this team as we are, as a lot of the listeners are, it is easy to watch a little bit of the game, drink, not really pay attention, and see that we lose by 25 points and be like, "Well, fuck, we're back to the Kenny Payne era." So I do understand that. I think the only things, I guess, the two things that would really concern me from this game is one, we knew this, but we are so reliant on the three. If we have games where we shoot 25%, under 30%, it's going to be hard for us to beat any of the top tier teams. If we're shooting 35, 40, 40 plus, we can beat any team. So that's a give and a take. But I think really the one overarching concern that I have is the lack of ability that we showed to beat anybody one on one. Like, I think you look at it, Chucky, Corn Johnson, Terrence Edwards, Case and Pryor. Those are those four dudes that you should expect to be able to win in one-on-one matchups, create shots at the rim, create assists, score in the paint. And those four combined for 21 points total on 6 of 32 shooting. And that's just simply not good enough. And I think Tennessee, you saw it in their defensive, basically how they had it set up. They were willing to be extremely physical. They were willing to cut off that nearest pass to the ball, and they were fine with getting beat one on one. And we just were not able to really get anyone to beat anyone one on one. And I think I'm afraid that might be a blueprint, be extremely physical, throw off Louisville's timing on offense, and make them beat you one on one. And that we just weren't, no one was able to get to the paint really.
Yeah, and that, I mean, it does surprise me because I don't think Chucky, Corin Johnson, Javon Hadley, or even Rain Smith are guys that shy away from contact, or guys that can't beat somebody off the dribble, or guys that can't play through contact or finish through contact around the rim. Uh, you know, I don't think Rain is necessarily very quick, but I did like, so the Tennessee fans behind me brought up a great point, a great comparison, that Rain Smith reminded them of Joe Ingles a little bit. I know that's a little bit of a stretch because Joe Ingles is like 6'7", but the Australian left-handed, crafty, just
He's going to make you bite on the
sharpshooter.
pump fake. He's going to get you to bite
Yes,
on the pump fake. And he's not afraid to put the ball on the floor if he does make you bite on the pump fake. And,
right,
and he'll
right.
accept the
I mean,
contact he gets in the paint for sure.
he took it to the bucket a couple times. He didn't get the foul calls that he wanted, and he
He
missed
got
a
the
bunny on.
one foul call though, and you
Yeah,
want to see an and one there. I think maybe a little bit, but
sure. I
you're right.
think
That's a good comparison. Just he's like a guard version. He's like a more of like a guard version who's going to run off the ball a lot more too. Not a lot more because Joe does his work off the ball, but Rain's got that Steph Curry like motor without the ball. He'll just keep
yes,
running.
yeah.
So
I mean, Rain Smith. I mean, to be honest with you guys, he looked like the best player out there. I know that sounds crazy. That sounds crazy to say, but he was the most consistent offensively. He never really got bothered offensively, right? Like he stayed in his.
yeah, he saw what he went 0 for 4 before or no, he made this second three, but then he went like missed three in
He
a row,
missed
I
like
think.
5 in a row. Yeah, something crazy.
And he
Yeah.
stayed confident. He made the 2 or 3 late or 3 late in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Or he went
Yeah.
4
He
for 12,
finished.
and I feel like I can remember all 3 he made, and they were all in like the last 15 minutes of the game, other than the first 3 points for Louisville of the game. So
Yeah.
that means
Yeah.
he went 1 for what 9, 1 for 8
Yeah.
before he made some more. So he
Yeah. I
stayed
mean,
stayed confident, which is you like to see that.
I think a lot of this can just boil down to Louisville wasn't ready for this moment. Like they simply were just not. There was nerves, like that was very apparent. I Megan and I got in probably 35, 40 minutes before the game. We sat down, we're watching warm-ups, and I texted you guys like it was a clank fest in warm-ups, which is not what we've seen of this team. I've watched enough, exhibition play first game. I've seen a lot of full games, a lot of highlights. Like these dudes hit shots. Like that's what this team does. And everybody, like to a man, was out there just didn't have a rhythm, didn't really have a feel for the game. Starting off the game, there were obvious nerves. Like I think everybody around me was kind of saying the same thing. Was just like, all right, let's just settle in. Let's get a shot to fall. Let's try to get to the basket. Let's force some more turnovers. Like it was just they couldn't get it going. And then once they did get it going and they made some runs, as this team will do, this team will make a run in every game. That's just who they are. They can get hot quickly from deep. They can force turnovers. They push the pace. That's what they're trying to do. That's their objective. Um, but I think that you know it was kind of a missed opportunity to really seize the momentum of the crowd and jump out and kind of punch them in the mouth and not look back, and that just never happened.
Yeah.
I think that's it reminded me of if you remember that Chris Mack senior night where they had 6 seniors and they were all very worthy of being honored and playing in the game, even though it was a weird lineup. It was like Ryan McMahon, Dwayne Sutton, Jordan Wara. I can't. I'm trying to think of who else it was. Regardless, I don't know if you guys remember this game, senior night. They're playing an inferior team. They come out and everybody's just like passing the ball
Oh
around the
yeah.
corner, like who's
Yeah.
who's going to hit the first three? Like, who's going to make this happen? And they're just going and going and going. It's the under 12 timeout. It's like 4-2. Like, they just couldn't. It's kind of what it felt like against Tennessee, except for Tennessee came out and they were ready to just rip some heads off and just dominate the game. And that's what they did. I mean, they came out strong. They played quality defense. They forced turnovers. They forced Louisville out of their comfort zone, out of their rhythm. And ultimately, that this was the result. But I think so much of what we're talking about, number one, will be circumvented by just hitting some more shots. Rick Pitino used to say all the time after Louisville losses, uh, you know, making shots, shooting well cures a multitude of wounds, right? And he would be so afraid that his team would get a false bravado, a false sense of confidence about themselves in early games against Hartford or Central Florida West Coast community that you know it was just such a focus on defense and a focus on passing and a focus on rebounding. Getting the stuff done that's going to win you games against better competition and not just making it a 3-point fest or a dunk competition in the middle of a game against a lesser opponent. Um, and to that point, right, shooting heals a multitude of wins. It's going to cover up a lot of bad things for Louisville this season, and it's going to win Louisville a lot of games that maybe they don't deserve to be in because of their ability beyond the arc. This just was not one of those games. And I think the people who I've heard a lot of the same stuff is like stop shooting threes, stop shooting threes, stop shooting threes. We weren't saying that in the first exhibition game when Louisville hits 23s, right? In the first half. Whatever it was, 18, some ungodly amount of threes in the first half. Nobody was saying stop shooting threes, stop shooting threes. You know, that's just the mantra of this team. If they have an open shot, they're going to take it, guys.
They're going to take it, and the coaches want that. That's what they're being asked to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing. It's like it makes me wonder what the discussion is between player and coach with these kind of things, where the coaches have to see what Jake just said. They're cutting off the passing lane and they're sliding into the dribble lane. They're telling the next closest defender to cut off the passing lane, regardless of who it is, regardless of how well they can shoot, and to cut off the dribbling lane for the person with the ball. And that's all you had to do. That's all you had to do. The off-ball defenders weren't staying attached even, which is why what Jake said, when you see that they're doing this, you have to get by your man because the off-ball defender is forced to collapse when you're playing a 5-out kind of a basketball where the paint's nearly empty. The paint's practically empty every offensive possession for us. All 5 players are out. There's one player in full motion at all times. One guy standing in the corner at all times. You've got to get into the paint and create the open shots for your team. And we just weren't doing that. We weren't doing that. We were swinging around, and every once in a while we'd swing it around enough times just enough to get a half open look. We had a lot of half open 3-pointers where the contest was kind of late or the contest wasn't, they caught the ball wide open, and by the time they were in their shooting motion, there was a hand up, but they were just open, not wide open threes. A lot of open threes that we just didn't make. And you weren't collapsing the paint. You weren't forcing how many, I don't have it here. It looks like they fouled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We Tennessee fouled us 8 times, I think, is what that looks like. It might be 6.
8 times in the second half or
in the game.
Oh,
shooting
no,
fouls. Shooting fouls.
Okay,
yeah,
yes,
sorry,
yes, correct. I'm sorry.
Like 6 shooting fouls throughout
like,
the game,
yeah.
I think, and that's just not a lot at all.
No.
You've got to collapse the paint. You've got to get past the first defender. You bring the second defender up. It's going to create space. That's basic basketball for teams who play 5 out and have what they believe to be multiple shooters on the court.
Yeah. I mean, and to your point as well, the shooting fouls were like weird, awkward, ticky-tacky, like maybe shots that Louisville shouldn't get fouled on. I remember specifically, like, there was a Terrence Edwards drive on the baseline, and he's shooting like that weird baseline 10 to 12-foot floater, and the defender doesn't realize he's going to stop and take that shot, and he gets the and one.
Yeah.
Noah Waterman made a 3
and
where
1
a guy
3
fouled him.
Yeah,
the guy had fouled him with no business really fouling him. Like, there wasn't anything, to your point, Roman. There were a few times early in the game where they took the ball to the hole, whether it be on a fast break, whether it be on a set play, where somebody got the ball to the bucket and Tennessee just made a better defensive play. And so I think mentally they're just like, oh, they're not going to call that, so we're not going to go back to that well. And I think that's just the wrong approach to take. I mean,
especially
look,
on your home court. Especially on your home court,
you're not going to win any games with Terrence Edwards and Javon Hadley combining for 11 points.
With them not with Terrence, like with what you said, with what Jake's saying, with Terrence, Kaysen, Corin, and
Chucky.
Yeah, the 4 of them, they're the 4 best creators on the team. There are 4 best scorers on the team, and they're probably the 4 best ball handlers outside of Rain Smith. So,
gotta have more.
It's a no-brainer. You're not commanding any double teams. You're not playing through the post on anybody. You don't have a big man sitting on the block forcing you to give it to him because of the defensive matchup. We don't have that. I'd like to see a little more of that, just to try to get Kaysen the ball closer to the basket. If we know they're not going to command a double, you've got to try to empty one side out, get Kaysen on the block, come screen shooters around. It's like we're not watching enough Warriors highlights, who it just doesn't make sense. We've got, the players who have high basketball IQ. We should be in the paint conducting offense out of the paint more. But I digress. That's something that's going to take film, and it's going to take a performance like this. It's going to take going up against a team who can defend like this to really expand, force Pat Kelsey and that offense to expand. So I think they needed this.
Yeah, I also wanted to point out James Scott. Like, I love James Scott. I still think he's got a great future with his team, but dude was non-existent. Played 20 minutes, did not attempt a field goal, had 4 rebounds, 1 block, 2 steals, 1 assist. Like, really didn't gave us a little bit on defense, gave us basically nothing on offense. And there were multiple times he didn't play a lot in the first half because he got 2 fouls early, which is also an issue. He's done this now in back-to-back games. But he'd get the ball in the paint and he's not even looking to shoot. It's just like, get it, kick it out immediately for a shooter, which I love. I love unselfish basketball players, but when you are 6'10" and you are as freakily athletic as James is, you need to be shooting that. So that was one thing that I don't know if it's just young, and that's probably one of the biggest games he's played in. Just got out physical. I don't really know what it was, but watching that replay back, you had to focus to try and even figure out where James Scott was on the floor at times.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe too much unselfishness from a guy like that. Maybe too much unselfishness from a guy like Terrence Edwards. I think that Louisville
definitely for sure from Terrence. You see your team. You're what you've come here to do. You know what you've come here to expect. What the expectation is for you. Same with Chucky, because Chucky, you've come here to express yourself as a point guard fully.
Mm-hmm.
This was the perfect opportunity to do so, Terrence. The perfect opportunity to showcase what you can do when your team needs a bucket.
Right. Right. It's just got to be better. It's got to be better from a lot of different aspects. And I think that's the thing, though. Like, I think the team knows that. I think it was just all around. It was just not from start to finish. It just wasn't a good day. The shots weren't falling. And I think that was really what they let impact them way too much. Right. The shots simply were not falling. And then that just trickled down. I don't think there was ever a time where they just stopped trying. There was that little segment where Kelsey had to call a timeout kind of towards the end of the game where they let two straight line drives to the basket, and it was just time to kind of
Yeah,
call off the dog
untouched
within the
layups.
sub.
You can't. Yeah,
Right, right. That there was that little segment that was like, wow, that was really discouraging. But the game was already in hand at that point. I think it was like an 18-point margin that grew to 22. So it's not like it was like, oh, Louisville got it down to 7, and then they let two straight line drive
no, yeah,
layups.
it was like 15 to 19, or yeah, like
Yeah, it
17 to
was.
21 or something like that.
Yeah. So it wasn't anything where it was like, oh, well, that was super disheartening. It was just like, all right, well, that's game. That's it's pretty much over. Let's just figure out how to get to the end of this thing without embarrassing ourselves too much, type of thing. But I mean, I just go back to, if you're a fan, right? And maybe I'll throw this to you guys too as we kind of gracefully exit here. If you're a fan and you are just super concerned about that outcome, and you think that that's what good teams are just going to do it to a Pat Kelsey team, what do you say to fans that think that? Because I think there's a solid faction of people out there that are like, this is what's going to happen to this team against quality opponents.
That's a great question, Press. Drake, you want to go first here?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that if you dig into the numbers, this team played well enough. Outside of, I think the one largest thing was just like the offense was so slowed down and so stifled by physicality on and off the ball. I think that is a longer term concern. But this team played well enough to win this game. We're likely not going to miss 33s in a game. We're not going to force 20 turnovers and only get 5 points off turnovers. The other team isn't going to shoot 57% from the field. I mean, these are all just contributing factors that led to this. So I think that you have to realize that it's early in the season. This is 13 brand new players together, or I guess 11 playing together right now. And Tennessee just had a hell of a game. And if this team doesn't shoot well, it is going to be difficult. But I think that can be said for most teams, but particularly this team.
Yeah, that's a great point there. Press, what I would have to say to the fans who feel that way is it takes time. It takes time, for one. It's game 2. You have to lose to learn what you have to do differently. You don't win games. You don't score 100 points on teams that aren't matching you and then preparing, knowing exactly what you need to prepare on for a matchup like this. And what's another point I will make is Pat Kelsey, even people like us, even the fan who didn't know as many player profiles going into the season. We knew the issues we saw. We knew coming into the season that these were going to be the things we have to look out for, right? We have great perimeter defense. We just forced the SEC Defensive Player of the Year, and I get that's the defense. We just forced a high level point guard into 11 turnovers in one game. Zakai Ziegler is 11 turnovers from a player who's plays high level basketball for Tennessee and is probably going to be a high level tournament basketball player as well. That's just not common. It's not common. You lose by 22 and you force the second best player on the team into 11 turnovers, right? You did the exact what you needed to do with him defensively. Outside of the couple threes that he made at moments that just, of course, this 3 went in, he didn't have the best game. Another thing I'll say is you're not going to play a lot of teams that are set up like Tennessee. That's another thing. Not many teams are going to defend as well as Tennessee. This Tennessee team, in their last 4 or 5 matchups with Alabama, Nate Oates, Alabama, they're like, Alabama's 1-4. This Tennessee team beat Alabama by 20 last year. An Alabama team that went, was a good tournament team and has aspirations to be another good tournament team this year. And they brought players back. That's a good team. This is a high octane defense, right? And we don't play a lot of teams like this throughout the season, and there's just not very many teams like this in college basketball at all.
Right. Well,
and just lastly, like when you miss that many shots, you're not going to give yourself a chance to win. And missing that many shots is not going to be common at all.
No. I mean, so first of all, when you look at Tennessee, this is a team built to go deep in March, right? I mean, they were an Elite Eight team a season ago. Zakai Ziegler was, he's probably the best point guard in the SEC. If not, he's maybe number 2, right? So that's number 1 about Tennessee. Number 2, like you said, name a team that's going to be a better defensive team that they play this year, right? I mean, to
Bellerman.
Roman's point. So that's one thing to take into consideration as well. And I think that as we were previewing this game, I think that we were a little too high on the fact that Louisville's offense could kind of circumvent and kind of shoot over Tennessee's defense essentially, and that really wasn't the case.
But it
I
was
would
though.
vent-
It really was, Press. If you really want to, if you really think about it, and there wasn't a good balance at all, especially as we were digging the hole we put ourselves in.
Right.
We were getting the good shots. We were getting the open threes.
Yeah.
A set would work out. We'd find the open pass. We'd find it quick enough. That was another issue. Sorry to go back into nitpicking within summary mode here, but we weren't playing quick enough on offense. That was just like something that it's common sense, Jake. When you're not playing a pick and roll offense where you're literally waiting to see what the defense is giving you, when you have a motion offense that you're going to be making a pass regardless of how quickly the defender's trailing you and where they're at on the court, you have to play as fast as you can, and we weren't doing that. We kind of got rattled early off to start that game. We got blocked in the paint a couple times, like Jake said, a couple foul calls that didn't get called, or like Press said, we didn't get a couple foul calls in the paint early, and now you're not going into the paint. That's not going to give you a good balance into finding those shots. And at that point, you're just going to wait for the open threes to present themselves.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I think
we just didn't make them. I didn't mention that. We didn't make the shots. We were able to shoot over them. We just didn't make them all. Press, that's all.
Yeah. I mean, I think it goes back to the rhythm thing, right? Like,
yeah,
they're not, and they were taking good shots, but I think that there was opportunity for great shots. And they just weren't there. They weren't there with the connectivity quite yet. I would venture to guess if I just had, and this could come back to be inaccurate, but it's my personal belief that Louisville will not play a worse game than this the rest of the season. And I don't think that Tennessee will play 5 better games than this season.
I like that take. I don't know. Here's what I will say about that. I don't know if I should have let you finish. Sorry, because I basically agree fully with you. I think Louisville could play a worse game than this. I don't think this will be the worst margin of the biggest margin of victory for the opposition in any loss that we have this year for sure. This is actually this and Indiana were my only 2 losses in the first 9 games before Kentucky.
Think so? You think they beat Duke?
I do. I think they beat Ole Miss as well. But this is just beliefs. This is before Morehead State.
This is
based on what I saw in exhibitions and highlights of exhibitions of those other teams. So I still have to go and dig and watch all these other teams. And at the moment, that feeling is like this. But I'm not going to lose optimism against a Tennessee team that was clearly a little bit more prepared and set up to kind of beat teams like us specifically, high-paced shooting teams. Tennessee's, Barnes, he's got those kind of teams figured out.
Yeah, I mean, if you told me this Tennessee team was a 1 or 2 seed in the NCAA tournament, I'd believe you. So, I mean, I think that's, if you're a Louisville fan looking back on this game, I mean, second game of the season, to go back to what we initially presented, right? Like, I think that, second game of the season, it doesn't. Can we hold on just a second, please? Sorry. I think that, I think you're going to be looking back at this and feel like a lot of people overreacted. I couldn't find it within myself to have that sort of visceral reaction to this game. Was it a bummer? Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. But It's too early. It's too early.
Right.
There's
Right.
way too many things that you saw out there that can be fixed, that can be strengthened and honed in on, right?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
you have to give a larger sample size. We're going to have a lot of high-powered opponents in the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks. See how we fluctuate after a performance like this. Can we go into Bellarmine, stay with the momentum, stay with the belief that we can, hit shots and be a cohesive team? Do so.
Mhm.
You go into a Winthrop team that's going to be, I've been told probably a little bit better than a Bellarmine team. I
Yeah.
thought it'd be the other way around, but a
Mhm.
Winthrop team that's going to be a little bit better, but still two rosters in a row that you should have the advantage against. So
You need to see, you got to see him get
see
back to what
improvement.
we yes,
Get back to what you
absolutely.
want. Get the confidence back in the shot and the confidence back in the ability to take what the defense gives. Because that's one thing I saw is that we never once took what the defense was giving. Like never once got put in a position to try to take advantage of what the defense was giving us. Right?
Right.
We never even set ourselves up to do that. Right? And I blame you, Chucky Hepburn. Chucky, I'm calling you out right here, right now on the Starting 502 podcast. If you get into another position where your team needs offense conducted, I don't want you to just pass it around the pre-3-point line and start looking around. Get into the
Yeah.
paint, make this help defender step up, find the lob, find the open three in the corner. You have to do this, Chucky. I saw it in the Bahamas. I
Mhm.
saw it. Come back and do it now. I'm calling you out.
Let's get better from this. That's what I think. Jake, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I think you guys are right. I think that teams like Tennessee, teams like Houston, teams like Virginia, those ultra physical teams that are hyper focused on defensive efficiency are likely to be this team's kryptonite. Those are the teams that you
Yeah.
probably don't. We won't see them a lot in the regular season outside of Virginia, but I think Virginia's offense is so bad that it'll be okay if we struggle
Right.
defensively against them. But like in March, if we get matched up in like the second weekend against a Houston or a Tennessee or something like that again, I will be concerned because I think in games like this, you do have to be able to shoot well to win or stay in the game. And it's at this point clearly not predictable. We have some games where we hit 26 threes, some games where we hit 10. So I think that's,
Right.
but yeah, I'm not overreacting. I'm not worried about it. I think it's good to see games like this. I have faith in Coach Kelsey to be able to watch this and learn from this and improve the team. So I'm not too concerned.
Yep. Yep. I think really it comes down to one thing, guys. If Pat Kelsey starts using obscenities, this team's going to start winning. Period. Like I kind of thought to myself a little bit during this game, like if there's a game that's going to make Pat cuss, it's this one, 100%.
Did he?
Boys, no, go ahead. Sorry, Jake.
Does he not cuss? Is this a thing? I didn't know about him. Will he not cuss?
Not in front of people, I don't think.
Right. I don't think he does publicly.
Interesting.
I'm not sure if he does. I mean, even when they show him on, on team videos and stuff, he's saying like frickin' and gosh darn and so I know I've heard Satterfield was big on the no cussing thing, but then he got him behind closed doors and he had a typical coach potty mouth. But no, I think it really rings true with Pat Kelsey. He does not, as far as I know, he doesn't curse a whole heck of a lot. And he even apologized in his first press conference. He said something like frickin' or shoot or something
And
like
said
that. He's like,
sorry. Yeah.
yeah, and he apologized. I was like, come on, we've had our last few coaches have not apologized for saying the F word, so he's got a lot to learn in this city.
Get
All right,
Coach Kelsey in
boys.
some Call of Duty lobbies, and we'll change that language around.
Exactly. Just we got a 10-year-old here in the house.
Make him watch KP
get him.
post game press conferences. See if he
There you go.
get him to.
He did say fight in his press conference with that, which I think people didn't like very much. He said that Tennessee brought the fight to them. Let's hope that's the last time.
I'm not mad at that.
Yeah, no, I mean they're
I'm not
right.
mad at that.
He was right. He was in theory right. It's just a sensitive.
I like the way he went about his press conference too. Just to cap things off here. Sorry, we're finishing things up here, but I like how he didn't just say that we weren't good enough, he basically did. He said that he didn't try to go about saying that they went about things wrong. It was more so that they weren't good enough in their approach, and that their approach he still believes is good, one that will work. I still believe so. I
Me
just
too.
want him, to go out there and show it. Go out there and make the changes he needs to make and prove it. Keep proving it. Keep trying to prove it.
Damn straight. No, and I think they can do it. I really do. I don't want this to come across as like a negative Nancy podcast, but we've always shot it straight. We expected big things from this team. They didn't deliver the way that we thought that they would, but that doesn't mean that they won't in the future. So we're still going to hold strong, and I have a lot of optimism for the future of this program, in the very near future. So we'll leave it at that. Until next time, from the Kearns Corner Studios, brought to you as always by Mr. and Mrs. Bourbon. Drink your Mr. and Mrs. Press Meyer. You can find me at Press Meyer on Twitter. Jay Cook at UofL_updates. Roman Kelly at Romy Bean, the one and only Romy Bean. At the State of Lou at Starting 502. Until next time, let's get out of here and go Cards.
Go Cards.
Go Cards.